I'm Margaret in Windsor, and this is my father, King Edward VIII. And I want to say this: my phone's been out for the last days, and I'm just back on. And I wanted to reiterate for those who might be looking at a video and haven't seen the backup for this before. I was kidnapped from Buckingham Palace in 1941. I was born in 1939, and I was born to my father and mother, and my father was always married to Claudia Ruth O'Keeffe, who was the legal queen of England. He married her in 1936 after my grandfather, George V, died, and there was an addendum. It was a forced abdication, a plot to take my father down by the New World Order that's in power now. And that's when it really gained its power, is when the illegal treaties that happened after my birth. I was kidnapped the day I was born, Victoria II, the legal heir to the British Crown. And Elizabeth, my Uncle George, they're here planning my kidnapping. George is. That's Elizabeth's father, and she's illegal. And so is the rest of that lineage. This is Roosevelt, and that's not the Queen Mom. That's Elizabeth's mother, and she helped in my kidnapping, and she's a Rothschild. Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers. Look at your news media is all you have to do. They tell you right there. Look at NBC, and up on the walls, the building, the street number goes into the media there, Rockefeller Plaza. But actually, when you were watching Lester Holt, he turns around, and over the room there, the arc in the room there in the news, where he's giving the news, it says Rockefeller. So the Kennedys was appointed ambassador to England 1936 till they kicked him out in 1946. He and his son JFK helped in my kidnapping. They brought me to Moulton, Alabama, and gave me the name of a twin. Both twins were dead. They were Dempseys and born out of wedlock. And it was a hell of a life. I was put there and so abused. It's unbelievable. And I grew up using Peggy's name when, in fact, both of them were dead. And I'm not going to go on about that. I wrote a book before I found out about my real name and kidnapping in 1978 when Larry Flint was shot. I had worked for doctors, and I was writing about mind control murders, and that's what I want to zero in here. Larry Flint was shot in Lawrenceville, Gwinnett County, and later, I knew I'd never met Mr. Flint, but I knew it was a mind control murder. It was done in patterns, because mind control is invisible. And that, by the way, I had a letter from the FBI and all that. It was dated June the 23rd. And by the way, that was my dad's birthday, is on the June the 23rd. And ongoing investigation, national security involved, and I was flown out there in 1983 when the KAL was shot down, passenger plane, by the Russian jet MiG because it flew into their airspace. That's what you can do with mind control there, is you program the pilot. You put chips in root canals, heart bypasses, etc. And it's shocking that I have been putting this up. And you can simply Google now mind control, and there's plenty of information on it. But anyway, shocking that now they're coming up and people can't wait to be chipped so they can put their hand and turn everything over to the government. And they tell them they're not going to be on the GPS. Oh, believe me. Where's Edward Snowden, and what good did it do him to tell any of this? He was... I don't know if he's still in Russia, alive or what, but that's where he was banned to. Okay, and the crooks got away with it. My uncle's part of the New World Order, the global that's in power now. And the United Nations, that's when it started, when they kidnapped me, when it got the United Nations in full force. So this is just one of the James Holmes, Aurora, Colorado, mind control murders. He was programmed and he's been fed psychotic drugs. Can you even imagine? It's not just medical malpractice. It's the most vicious and torturing thing to feed a person who's not mentally ill. He's programmed. One has nothing to do with the other. And to do what they've done to him and a lot of the others is so horrifying. So now I wanted to mention this. About a week or so ago, and my phone's been out, a young man, Roberts, I think it was William Robert, I can't remember his last name, but he was come from Aurora, Colorado, and he had had a wreck, and the woman that he had a wreck with, I don't know how it happened, but she was in a coma. They were looking for him. Now, I've been putting up about mind control murders, and Virginia Tech was one of them, the shooter there. They're programmed. They're innocent. They don't even know what's going to happen if they got the chip in them. So here I've been telling especially, too, about James Holmes of Aurora, Colorado. Now then, this young man was a former Marine, and they were looking for him because of the woman being in a coma and the wreck. And they said he was dangerous, armed and dangerous. And what are the chances? And yes, his family, he does have family here up in, I've forgotten the name of it now. I believe it was up in northeast Virginia. Oh, I almost said it. I can't think of it, though. But they have got him now. But when he first came back here to Virginia, he went to Botetourt County, which is where I lived on the Appalachian Trail. All those years, starved and froze because they had shut me down. And they looked for him for quite a few days, and now they found him, and I guess they're taking him back to Aurora, Colorado. I'm not sure. But in my opinion, not because of his name, but the very fact of the surrounding things that happened, he's probably programmed himself. So those who think it's okay to program other people, they're doing it to you. Now, you stop and think about it if it was your son or your daughter. So now this is the family where they put me. And this is gussied up, I call it, because they did not look like that, and they did not have cars, and you don't see the shack and how this was done. This is a horrible family. That's Lana that I had to call mother. And well, I didn't. I somehow I knew, and I told them that wasn't my family. In fact, they had to go out back. I was about 3 years old, I guess, so that would have been 43 or 40, yeah. Anyway, about that time, I ran from them, and I know now they made this photo for a reason, to make my family know that they had me. I was brought there. And anyway, I was screaming when they brought me back to take this picture, and I was screaming, I remember it, I'm not a part of your family. They were going to take a family photo. So I'm going to, she's illegal, she's a war criminal. And my sons Mark and Scott are legal heirs after me. So that whole lineage is illegal. And by the way, for William and Kate, Kate's relatives are also, well, you have to get into the New World Order, Rockefellers and Rothschilds, and you can find some of it on Facebook, but if you know where to look. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that again. I wanted to get into this. I wanted to get into and this is what's on here, the Virginia Tech. I'm not Virginia Tech, Charlottesville. I wanted to say they're calling this hate crimes, and I'm going to get a lot of feedback because people hate me. You talk about hate crimes, you ought to see what they've done to me, and I'm 78 years old. Whether this is mind control here, I don't know. But Virginia, the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, first of all, let me clarify this. Nobody has said anything about Anastasia being murdered by Blue Ridge Mental Health near Charlottesville. And it's here in Roanoke, too. And it scares the bejesus out of you what they can do with it. She's my cousin, or about a second or third cousin, just like she is to Elizabeth, who doesn't care at all. Only how much money she can stash anyway. She's illegal. The treaties were illegal. Wrong people signed them. They were my dad and me that should have signed them, and that's what created the United Nations when they invaded Great Britain. Okay, and all this has come to pass with it, and you have to wonder about it now, but where it's going, because it is biblical. But I want to get back to University of Virginia. I'm going to name just a couple. They're talking about this, and they're not going to tell you about Yardley Love was a young student there, and her boyfriend is in prison. A nice-looking young man. He's in prison for murdering her, and I can tell you now that was done in patterns. And I want to get back to Hannah Graham. What's his name? Matthews. His last name is Matthews. Jesse Matthews is a black man that killed. Well, he's programmed to kill her, so he's really innocent of the murder himself. Hannah Graham and Morgan Harrington, and it's connected with Alexis Murphy, another black lady. They haven't even found her body, but they got a man in prison for life for supposedly killing her. I can tell you that one and the Morgan Harrington can be proven. Yes, it can. And they're not going to prove it. Now then, what's that got to do with this up here? They're talking about hate crimes, and they're talking about calling them the Klan and all this hate crimes. And I want to clarify this. You know, I've put up here about Martin Luther King's part in going with JFK. And that's a whole nother story. My father was sold out in me and in part so they could take over Africa or South Africa. Just look at it. Look at Great Britain now. Look at Australia, how it's been invaded. The United States created it. They kidnapped me, took my father down because he wouldn't take orders, and they smashed his they assassinated his character. And they don't even mention my mom. And by the way, Sir Winston Churchill helped do it. He was really close friends with Roosevelt, even had an apartment in the White House, limos. He sold out my father, and they burned the Windsor files, my birth certificate. I've been told by the British too many came over here to help me just live and try to bring me home, and so did the Germans. So for them to make a big deal, and you got the governor here, McAuliffe, who's friends with Clinton, the Clintons, you should Google, but I know this from another source other than Google. I didn't get it from there. How many people they have killed. Okay, their White House counsel, I believe, Vince Foster, was murdered. There's a whole list of them. There's about 86 if you care, but there's more to all this. There is really, so you have to ask yourself, why isn't the press doing its job instead of making this look like they're not telling the truth about it? I would dare say, and I'm not going to go any further because I don't really know about the young man that drove his vehicle in. And well, I will say this: the girl's name, and this is how precise the precision of it, mind control. The girl's name that was killed, and they're mourning her loss in Charlottesville today. It's all on TV. Her name is Heather. Now, then you're going to try to, people will disprove what I'm saying. When I came here, there's more to where I'm at right at the moment. I've been moved around, and I've been through holy hell. And all I've been guilty of is telling the truth, and that I was kidnapped as a baby. And you're going to blame me for that? You should go back. Nobody cares here. They just want to cover it up. Now, your governors know about it, your ex-governors, and Alabama George Wallace was shot with Lina Dempsey, the mother of the twins, where they put me in Laurel, Maryland. And if you want to tell me I don't like George Wallace, I don't like what Martin Luther King partnered with Kennedy to help kidnap me. They know all of this. They know what was done to me that's so atrocious. Who was the United Nations? Andrew Young. Oh, yeah. I wish the truth would be told. Do you know if anybody, if it's ever told, it's hideous what was done to me. But let me say this. If you went down, and the people of Roanoke even went down to the Martin Luther King. They went downtown like I never existed. You know how much money and technology to keep me alive poured into this country? I'm 78 years old. And they're not going to tell it unless God himself forces them to. And I don't know, maybe that might happen. Wouldn't it be nice for me? It sure would. I've had no rights. They hate me because I'm British. It doesn't matter that my mom was an American O'Keeffe, my aunt's Georgia O'Keeffe, the artist. They hate me. They don't want me saying anything. I've been made to salute their flag. There's been crimes committed against me if it were shown. I don't think people in the rest of the world would like it at all. But I guess that's all I'm going to say right now. But if anybody touched a Martin Luther King monument or anything, they'd be hell to pay. But you can go, I grew up in the South, and it really, I don't know that it has, I was gun-ho. I always cared about blacks. If you went back in things I told a long time ago that really happened, everything I've said did. I took up for the blacks. I felt for them. I felt for the underdog or the underperson getting persecuted or anything. Let me clue you. I was thrown out there, and I learned that the blacks hate you too. But I'm hated because I'm British. You talk about hate crimes. You talk about torture. That's been done to me and my sons. My sons are the heirs, not William and Kate and Harry and anything. And how do you think I should? You think I'm supposed to forgive? Nobody's even mentioning this. They don't mention about Anastasia. There were papers that were given to me because somebody brought them to me. You won't find them anywhere, and I handed them out to the press, and nobody will touch it. That was filed in the court in Charlottesville about Anastasia. You should hear it if anybody cares. Whether they care or not, I hope it's pushed down your throat and you have to accept the truth of what this country is like. And they're talking about hate crimes. Let me tell you this. I don't know. This is the woman up here, I believe. Her name's Heather, and I was going to finish this. She's the one that was killed in the car yesterday. I came in here, and there's something behind where I'm at here. I'm staying behind this whole thing here. But the girl up here is manager. Her name's Heather. Now you're going to say, try to disprove it. You're going to say, well, that's just one person. It just happened. No, it didn't just happen. I want to say this about Jeff Sessions from Alabama, senator, and he's the U.S. Attorney General, who I hoped and prayed would tell and prosecute the crimes that were committed against me in the state of Alabama. Whether he does, I don't know. But Rice was the she's Secretary of State, I believe, before Hillary. And not once did she ever say anything about the crimes done to me. You know, when I call back to Moulton, Alabama, or Decatur, where they took me, or Huntsville, they'll say, well, the FBI are the ones that's handling it, and you'll have to go back to where you were kidnapped. Are you kidding me? I can't go home. I'm a hostage. And besides that, you all installed Elizabeth. And therefore, this whole mess is illegal. Your United Nations should be dismantled. It's a bunch of crooked people. And your United Nations is your global government that's in